Today I wanted to talk essentially about how I got into this way of eating and the transition that I had between regular Australian eating and primal paleo eating. I'm going to start using primal and paleo pretty much interchangeably. Basically, when I use those words and I don't actually say paleo diet or primal blueprint, I mean just caveman eating in general. And if my previous video that I uploaded, I kind of explained the difference between the two terms, but everyone uses them interchangeably, so I'm going to as well. I started on this journey of food about a year and a half ago now, so 18 months ago. I was tired all the time. I had gone through a very stressful period finishing up university, and I was having issues just dealing with stress. I would find that like my feet would go numb sometimes or feel a bit like they were buzzing, or I would be tired, or I would get headaches, or sometimes I just couldn't deal with something and I just have to stop doing it and do it later. Or I don't know, there was a lot of like weird, like heart palpitations as well. There was a load of weird symptoms that somebody in their early 20s probably shouldn't be having if they are fit and healthy. And I wasn't super overweight. I was sort of probably a size or two bigger than what I am now, but I wasn't obese and I wasn't super unhealthy. I exercised a little bit, not a load, but I guess I was just average in every single kind of way. And I didn't feel attractive in my own body. I didn't feel like a sexy person. I just felt like an average person. And average in my mind at that time was boring. And so I found out about a friend of mine that was doing this diet because she'd been diagnosed with some spine issue. And in order to stop the inflammation in her spine, she'd gone off grains, she'd gone off dairy, she'd gone off sugar, the lot. And she was now basically paleo, primal, again, interchangeably. She was basically on the caveman diet, and she was finding that the inflammation had gone down and that she was feeling a whole lot better. And I was like, well, if she's got this diagnosed illness that, you know, she's treating with food, maybe if I eat this way, I can feel a bit better too, and maybe I'll lose a bit of weight and tone up in the process. And so that's basically what I was dealing with in the outset. I stopped having my conventional breakfast and I started having primal paleo breakfasts. And in order to do that, I started having smoothies, and I started having omelets and like eggy kind of fry up type things, and sometimes I would have bacon, but I definitely didn't have the cereal that I used to have. I have eaten rice bubbles. This is kind of embarrassing. I've eaten rice bubbles for breakfast for about 4/5 of my life, and it's only I mean, obviously I've gone off it from time to time, but it's only sort of in the last 18 months that I've had a great big break from my rice bubbles life. So if you were drawing a chart of me consuming rice bubbles, it would be 1 bowl a day, and now none. And rice bubbles, you know, I don't want to get sued by Kellogg's, but they're not the best thing for you every single day. And so breaking that habit was definitely like the first big step that I made towards this diet. And so I stopped having my rice bubbles every morning, and I changed it up and started eating primal/paleo in the mornings. And that was my first big step. And I probably stayed like that for about a month. I basically ate a healthy primal breakfast and then a regular lunch and dinner for a couple of months. And I was definitely finding that I was slightly less obsessed with breakfast. Up until that point, similar to my mum actually, would find that if I was even, you know, half an hour late eating breakfast, I'd be like, oh my God, I have to have something or I'm going to faint. And I found that that was actually going away, and I think it's because I wasn't relying quite so much on carbohydrates to keep me fueled in the mornings, and I knew that the protein and the fat would sort of last a bit longer in my system, and I wouldn't have to. And I mean, rice bubbles, like, you churn it up in 10 minutes, you're hungry again after, you know, 10 minutes after eating it. So yeah, definitely I found that I was changing in the way that I wasn't so starving all the time and didn't need to snack quite as much in the mornings anymore after I would have my breakfast. After a few months of doing that, I switched up. I think I was lunch actually afterwards. Dinner's always been a fairly primal affair with me. I usually have like roast dinners with vegetables, or I'll have a steak with salad, or a barbecue kind of dinner. I always eat a lot of fish. I was raised on basically borderline Mediterranean diets, so most of what I was eating at dinner time at least was fairly paleo/primal anyway. I was obviously still having like regular salad dressings and that sort of thing, and now I've phased that out. But with dinner I didn't feel like I needed to do a whole lot, and lunch was sort of my main target after I'd perfected breakfast. So I switched up lunch next, and I stopped having my white bread sandwiches, and I started eating more healthy lunches. I was having kind of salads, definitely were probably the backbone of my early lunches, but as I started to introduce kind of more meat into my lunch as well, I found that that was definitely lasting me longer, and I wasn't tempted to snack in the afternoon. That said, I still do snack a little bit, but it's usually with nuts or with fruit. So yeah. Anyway, so after about 5 months, I realized that I'd actually lost a fair bit of weight, and I took sort of what I consider to be my after picture, because it's sort of the bulk of change between 2 and 5 months into it. The first couple of months, obviously, I was only changing up breakfast, and I did lose a bit of weight at that point, but the before and after pictures that I'm about to show you guys, you definitely see the difference. So here are the pictures. Okay, these are my before and after photos. I've posted these online before, so you may have seen them, but the one on the left is 2 months into the primal eating diet. I'd lost a little bit of weight by this point from when I started 2 months prior to that photo, but this is sort of the first time that I felt comfortable taking a photograph and actually putting it on the internet or sharing it with everyone. I never took any photos before this, and the image on the right is about 3 months later, 5 months into the paleo diet. And as you can see, I gain a lot of weight on my tummy and on my hips and on my upper thighs, and it doesn't take much for that to go away completely. My arm in both photos, you can see, is pretty much the same, and you can tell that both photos are me because of the stupid surgery scar above my belly button there. But that's basically the difference that it made for me, and this wasn't cutting out dairy, this was only sugar, processed food, and grains. I was still eating a fair bit of carbohydrates as well, still having a lot of pumpkin, but the difference, I think, is pretty astounding for just 3 months. And I think that if you try it for 3 months, you'll probably end up with a similar result. I would be surprised if you gained weight doing the paleo diet at least. But that's my before and after photos. So on with the video. There you go. So fairly significant difference, or I think so anyway. I suppose because it's on me, I notice it a lot more. But I definitely got a lot of comments, especially about like my face and how I was more angular now and that kind of thing. And I think that, you know, you lose weight all over, but I really lost a lot of weight off of my hips and my stomach, and you can definitely see that in those photos. So essentially that's all I really wanted to show you guys today. I definitely recommend changing up your breakfast routine first, followed by lunch, followed by dinner, because dinner is usually a fairly minor offender anyway, and it's breakfast and lunch that are definitely going to be the high grain, high sugar intake meals, and then snacks after that. I think that by doing it meal by meal, it's not like, oh, today I'll have a cheat, or, you know, it's not that big a deal if I have this for lunch or that for lunch. If you've made the commitment, okay, I'm now having primal breakfast. Okay, I am now having primal breakfast and primal lunch. Okay, I am now having primal breakfast, lunch, and snacks. Okay, now everything I eat. It forms a really serious line. And if you tell your friends and you tell your significant other or whatever that that's what you're doing, then they can be like, aren't you not supposed to be having that sandwich, or aren't you not supposed to be having that bread? And it definitely helps reinforce it, and as opposed to being like, okay, I'm going to start eating more primally now, and there's kind of no scale to measure it on. I think you definitely need like a scale to say, okay, bam, this is going to happen. So I'm going to start releasing primal/paleo breakfasts and breakfast options for you guys, and I'll probably do sort of 5 or 6 breakfast ones and then 5 or 6 lunch ones, And the idea is just to help you guys ease into it a little bit if you're not familiar with the way that you have to cook and the way that you can eat. I found it really difficult when I was starting out because I was treading water. I didn't have any books at hand when I first started. I was just like, okay, I'll try this thing out. I heard about a friend that did it. So I definitely think that having more resources, especially online, would have helped me a lot, and hopefully it'll help you guys as well. So that's all for now. Please subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Seriousness.